Hi, I'm Aditya Soni, and you're watching HeTroubleHacker. A few weeks ago, I had the honor of speaking at BSides Jaipur, which was an amazing event. And today, I'm excited to share my talk from that day to you all. Before we deep dive, I want you to smash that like button and click on subscribe so that you won't miss on any other recipes created by this hacker. Okay, so now we can get started and enjoy. Welcome to Cuisine, guys. A recipe for poisoning the cache. So in this talk, I'll be discussing about some cache poisoning attacks and how can you poison the stored response of a request. So let's get started with who am I? My name is Aditya Soni and I go by the alias of Heat. I'm also a bug bounty hunter uh, and go with the same alias of Heat on Twitter and Medium as well. I am also a product security analyst at HackerOne. That is my day job, and yeah, I have triage of bugs before, so you can say hi on Twitter or any other medium. So yeah, without wasting any time, let's see what is a cache. So a cache is like a temporary storage on your server which stores the copies of files or data. Like it can be any static file or any image file or JS file which is stored in your cache, which is stored in cache to save time to enhance the performance of your website. Why poison it brings makes a new attack vector of cache poisoning. Like, let's say, so what is cache poisoning? It allows an attacker to manipulate the cache data by a user into his own crafted malicious incorrect information. And cache poisoning can also lead to DOS attacks or phishing. And yeah, we will discuss about different attack chains in later slides. So let's see how does it work. Okay, so let's assume there is a legitimate user trying to access a original website. So the request has to go from DNS server and then and then the user is able to view the original website. What happens if a user is continuously visiting a website is that this request is stored into a cached server so that the user can save his own bandwidth to load the application and the application loads faster. And here comes the use of cache. So if uh, if the request is cached, then an attacker can inject his malicious payload into the saved response. So by injecting anything, like it can be a malicious header which can change the redirecting URL to attacker's website. And so what happens is the legitimate user will navigate to poisoned response in this case. So this is cache poisoning. Yeah, so welcome to Cache Cuisine, a bug bounty hunter's guide. In this, I will try to cover some topics such as phishing, DOS attacks, excesses, and how cache poisoning can be also used to store sensitive information. So that is also called as cache deception attack. Uh, we are not discussing about cache deception in this talk. We will be more focused towards cache poisoning. And these are some like publicly disclosed reports on HackerOne. You can directly go to Google and search for cache poisoning HackerOne reports. And yeah, you might get more results and have an get an understanding of about cache poisoning. Uh, yeah. So what is a recipe for disaster? So in this case, disaster is cache poisoning. Just for the reference, we're not creating any sort of disaster. And yeah, so we need a browser. Uh, let's say for an example, Firefox, Burp Suite, Cardio, or Zap. It can be any tool which can intercept a request and you can see the response. Some tools, for this particular case, we are using Paraminer. It will help us to brute forcing multiple headers and with yeah with some key terms like cache buster, and all about like crazy ideas, and it's all here. You just have to think outside the box and enhance your creativity, uh, and everything leads to a different situation, right? So this is cooking with caution, and we will be cooking with caution because cashew poisoning can lead to some disasters. Because if you don't use cache buster, you will poison the original response, which will lead to like legitimate user getting your malformed response. Now, in demo, what we will try to do is intercept a request in Burp Suite, appending cache buster, and like to avoid poisoning legitimate users, insert the malicious header or value, and forward the request multiple times so that cache response is saved on the server. And we will use uh, these labs as a demo. This is digi.ninja cache poisoning lab, which is very interesting and can be like useful to understand the basics. And this is the PortSwigger's web cache poisoning labs. It goes to a good hard level as well, and you can implement these situations in real life applications, and you might get some results. That is from my personal experience. Okay, so yeah, this was the demo. No, let's first understand the key ingredients in cache cuisine, like understanding the key terms. So what is cache buster? So okay, so that was not the demo. Okay, so let's understand the cache buster. So this differentiates an original request with a unique request. Okay, so if you send a cache, if you change the value of these two values, like this parameter and the value, uh, it might result into a different uh, request to to the original server, and it will treat it as a unique request. So how does the server like knows that this is going to get stored or not? Those are the keyed inputs. So if two requests are sent with the same this URI and the host header, uh, server determines that these two are like sent multiple times, so it stores the response as a cache. And what is unkeyed input? Okay, so this is keyed input. If a user sends test.js on example.com multiple times, it will store it. Not like this is not the case of every time. It might change based on the keyed inputs. It's not like always that the URI is only the keyed input. Keyed input can be on accept encoding or the user agent as well. And this is the unkeyed input, which is like it does not determines that uh, it stores anything or not, but it is still part of the request. So cache poisoning happens on the unkeyed input side because this is not part of the regular request. But in cases, response can be stored like this evil.org response can be stored in the cache, and which can lead to cache poisoning. And how do you determine that your response is getting stored or not? That can happen. You can observe that with the help of these response headers, such as age or cache hit headers also. Now, this is the special recipe which has helped me a lot to automate some of the process, and it includes Nuclei. This is a new tool by CodeJump. I have recently discovered it, and it's quite useful if you want to understand the basics. of the interaction of a request to a response with different headers and different values. GitHub is quite useful. It's You guys all know what GitHub is. If you use the GitHub search option like efficiently, you can get like new headers, and this is the way how I found one interesting header, and it lead to cache poisoning and multiple of bounties. And you have to create your own word list of headers, like what are you testing. And I have attached links for Nuclei and HEX HTTP tool, which I will show how when you can use it. So this is the result of Nuclei. Like if you provide a list to Nuclei with your own uh, template, you can get some results. And in this case, I have used X forwarded host as a malicious header, and user agent as well as a malicious header. I'll show you how I create headers and uh, generate the response. And this is the result from HEX HTTP. As you can see, it gives you the result of interesting behavior, and sometimes give you vulnerability confirmed response. In this case, it was right. I was trying it on a lab, and X forwarded host was the malicious header. So, okay, now let's not move ahead and start with the demo. Hmm. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, people start with intercepting a request to this basic lab. Let's start the lab, and uh, I hope it's readable. So let's read what the description of this lab says. This page loads its open graph image based on the host requested, but isn't that clever when working out the host to use? It has to be something related to host. So as a basic learner, what I'll try to do is uh, I can see this request to basic.php on my logger.++ extension, and I'll forward it to repeater tab. Now, let's minimize the number of headers sent. I'm just using for this test case, and this is a valid request. Now send it. Okay, sending it multiple times, it can be observed that the request is getting cached. Now trying it with a cache buster such as test is equals to x. You can observe the request is getting cached with the temporary cache buster. Now, if I okay, so to automate this with the help of extension, you can find this extension on Bab Store, and using paraminer, go to guess params and guess everything. You will get 4 pop-ups. Click on OK. This is for different attack configs, and you can get the results of paraminer over here, and it can be observed that yeah, it has identified a parameter called X forwarded host, which results into a different request than the original one. Now let's go to repeater and use this X forwarded host header and give it a value of example.com with a different cache header, because uh, previous cache header has been poisoned, and the response is already stored. So let's give it a different cache buster and forward the request. Send it multiple times, and it can be seen like this response is cached, and the value of X forwarded host header can be seen over here. So this means the image is like loaded from our controlled uh, malicious host. Let's try to escalate it into a XSS, change the cache buster, and voila, like there is no encoding, and our our payload is getting reflected as it is, and we can convert it into a working XSS with a simple payload. Changing the cache buster, this is the important part. It stores a new request and copy the URL. Let's open an incognito tab, and uh, you can see XSS can be achieved. This is a part of cache poisoning. Not always it can be lead to XSS, but in this case you can increase your severity. Also, cache poisoning is like quite interesting when you talk about severity. Uh, so in case of cache poisoning, so yeah, so CVSS in case of cache poisoning goes to high or medium, goes to high or medium, and the impacted vector is availability. Also, it can be integrity. If you can come up with an XSS, and both like goes to high. Sorry, availability goes to high. If you are able to impact the whole application, not just an endpoint, and if the whole application is impacted, the CVSS score goes to high 7.5 based on your environmental scores. Yeah, so this is an interesting attack to understand and can lead to high bounties. Okay, so we were able to complete the lab and were able to execute XSS. Now cancel this lab and let's go ahead with our second lab for which is like on PortSwigger. So in this case, let's try to identify the unkeyed cookie and access the lab on PortSwigger. Yeah, so uh, in a general request, what are the injectable inputs like where we can inject our payloads are on the URI, or it can be a header as well, like you can manipulate this header or you can give value to this header. It can be anything which can lead to a different response, or if the cookies are getting reflected on the response in the response. So for this particular cookie case, let's use this lab because hunting for a target on live can be harmful. Okay, so let's see where is our burp suite. Okay, here it is. Let's reload this page. Here it is. Let's send the request to repeater and forward the request. Let's use cache buster so that we know this is a unique request, and let's see if anything is resulting in the response. Okay, so we can see that the value of FE host cookie is getting stored in the response. So let's manipulate this cookie to anything malicious. Let's say h1 test h1. Now let's change the cache buster and forward the request. Bingo, like here you can see that our value is not getting encoded, and the same can be observed in the response. So let's try to again escalate it to XSS and using a simple XSS payload. Okay, so I have to change the cache buster. This is the previous cached response, and I've changed the cache buster now, and you can see that here we are able to poison this. And okay, so this is under a script header. Let's close this script tag. Let's close this and now open the following URL into uh, a new page, and exactly the response we are able to trigger XSS. Okay, so this brings to the completion of second lab, and I will try to explain my attack approach using Nuclei as well. Okay, so let's first talk about HEX HTTP. For this talk, I have already ran this tool on poison.digininja and here you can observe that it looks for uh, uh, s- it analyze the response. So let's see here it's trying to analyze the host, and it's trying to give different values to the host header and then looking at the response and saving and showing it. So yeah, let's give this tool the value of our lab and see how does it respond to it. This can be installed very easily with uh, like uh, with easy Python command, and you just have to git clone this repository by CodeJump. Shout out to him, very amazing tool. And you can install the requirements and using this Python command. Using this syntax, you can run it on any target. You can give file as an input or, as well, and include your custom header or user agent. And yes, so let's go to our results page and see the response. So it can be observed that interesting behaviors can be seen on the following URL with the help of max forwards header as well. So let's go to our lab and try to use max forwards with a different cache buster. I'm not sure if it's giving or not. No, nothing can be like seen. But yeah, we have a result which is confirmed by this tool for X forwarded host header and with the value of following. Let's remove the single quotes, change the cache buster, and yeah, so this has been verified with as you can see the response is there and the value of age header in the response. And yeah, let's stop this tool and go ahead with our nuclei approach. So I've been using Nuclei for quite long, and it is very interesting tool if you can build your own templates with it. And for this particular session, I've created two YAML files, and so this is first, which is in this case I'm injecting test HTM in user agent header and with a random variable, so that it treats it as a unique request. And I'm using a matcher as test HTM. I can show you how does it look like. So let's say for an example, I'm sending a request to Nuclei on example.com and with the following template.
Okay, so as you can see is this template is sending two requests. This is the first request. So this is not a vulnerable host, so you won't find a response, a valid, successful response over here. So yeah, so it sends a first request with a random cache buster and the second with a random cache buster and the test HTM as a payload in our user agent header. And second response is with the same cache buster and the user agent is like default. But yeah, so this is the request, and in similar way, the second template is x forwarded template, x forwarded host template. Yeah, so we are using x forwarded host with a value of testhtm.com as a value, and the matchers are testhtm in the header. If it is observed in the header, you have to give the response, the success response, and it and the condition is used or, so it in this case it can be observed in headers or the body of second request. So the second is to denote that you have to check for matchers in the second request. So I think we can have some results for this, as our lab is vulnerable to X forwarded host header. Let's go to our lab and copy the link. Remove our own cache buster, as it will implement it, of its own, and forward the request. Wow, bingo. Okay, so let me give template as X forwarded host template. Yeah. Oh wow. God of demo. Bye. Let's try again. Let's see if there is an error in our template. Um, yeah, this looks fine. Let's increase the number of requests so that this can get cached. Let me fix it. Wait fast. Hmm. Okay, so now we have three requests. Let's change our matcher here. That has to look for response in the third request. Test HTM, test HTM. Okay, so body here is not test HTM. Come on, guys, you should have told me. It's test HTM. Now we will have our results. Echo. Now forward it. Come on. Yeah, so we have a result, and Nuclei says that this host is vulnerable. Let's see our request in Burp Suite. So this was the first request sent by no, yeah, this was the first request sent by the Nuclei with the X forwarded host header and the value of test HTM with the cache buster, and using the same cache buster in the third request, and we can see that the response is getting cached. So yeah, so this template can be used on multiple applications, and in case of test, in case of this, if this header is vulnerable to any request, you can find a valid success response on Nuclei. And okay, so on an interesting note, let's use X middleware prefetch header and try to build a request, try to make a template out of it. So we have seen a recent blog by a researcher, and okay, so Yeah. So the output for the poison response was brackets, like two curly brackets in the response. And if we want to create a template for following a header, it can be easily created with the same approach. Let's use X forwarded header as our example template, and let's go to GitHub and create a new, let's say, middle.yaml file. And now, okay, so now we know that the malicious header is X middleware prefetch, and if we give value as 1 to it, the the response is supposed to be yeah, these curly brackets, these curly brackets. Okay, so let's give let's change the second request malicious header as well, 2x middleware prefetch. And now we know that the body of the malicious cached response has to contain curly brackets, and yeah, this has to be a response. But you so one like problem using nuclei is it will lead to multiple false positive cases. So in this case, to avoid false positive cases, what we can say is the length of body 3 has to be less than, like, say, 50 bytes. And because like curly braces can be found on multiple applications, if it's not vulnerable to X middleware prefetch header or not. So just to avoid some false positive cases, we can use length as a measure in DSL, a nuclei, and create a jest out of it, and then like use it on a nuclei tool. So here I can wget middle.yaml file, and I can use it on multiple applications to find if it's vulnerable or not. I think this particular uh, header template is available on Nuclei, and try to hunt. Yeah, I guess this was my time, guys. I hope I was helpful to you and you were able to get something out of today's session. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Yep. These are some references I have posted on this in the slides. You can find these slides available on internet after event. Yeah, this is the reference for the lab by Digi.Ninja. And yeah, that was my time. I'm open for questions if you guys have any.